If you feel like the world is currently accelerating faster than your ability to keep up, that every time you master one technology, two more pop up demanding your attention.
Which is pretty much everyone right now.
Exactly. Then this deep dive is specifically tailored for you.
We hear that anxiety constantly. It's that feeling of running on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up and speeding up.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to step back from all that technical noise. We're not here to tell you, which specific gadget to buy or which new AI model to click on.
No, that's just chasing the symptom.
It is. It's a temporary fix.
Exactly. We're aiming a lot higher. We've extracted the core strategic moves and some really surprising practical tactics used by the world's most successful adaptive companies. We're talking Adobe, Netflix, AT&T.
And even looking at the crucial failure of a company like Kodak.
Right. To really master this speed problem, we're giving you the shortcut to understanding the winning playbook for when the future arrives at, well, light speed.
We've synthesized all the research, and the central unifying insight is it's deceptively simple. Keeping up isn't primarily about acquiring new tools. It's about cadence, the speed and consistency of adaptation you adopt, the old rhythm, the default one in most organizations, and, for most of us,
The set it and forget it model.
that's the one where you master one thing and you just coast on that expertise for years. That is now the single biggest liability you can have.
That old rhythm assumes stability, doesn't it? It assumes the river you launch your ship on is just going to keep flowing in the same direction at the same speed forever.
Yeah, and that's just not the world we live in anymore.
Not at all. We live in a world defined by constant accelerated flux. When you look at the organizations and the people who not only survive but actually thrive during these huge technological shifts, their secret sauce wasn't better foresight. It was a faster, more deliberate rhythm of self-correction.
It demands a total mindset shift for the learner. You have to stop asking that passive, sort of worried question, what tool should I learn next to stay current?
And start asking the power question. What rhythm should I adopt so that I am never stranded on an old platform or an obsolete skill set? That reframing, that right there, it moves you from being reactive to being proactive.
And that proactive mindset is defined by 5 major strategic moves, 5 rhythms that turn a technological threat into a competitive advantage.
So that's what we're going to unpack today.
Exactly.
Wow.
We'll start with the cadence of disruption, which is probably the hardest step, choosing to destroy your own successful model.
Okay.
And then we move to the cadence of learning, so how to systematize continuous improvement. And finally, the cadence of resilience, which means designing for chaos rather than, banking on perfection.
Let's jump right into the deepest water first, which is that internal fight. The biggest challenge any thriving entity faces is choosing to destroy the very thing that made them successful before a competitor gets a chance. Let's explore the cadence of disruption, cannibalizing the familiar. The history of technology teaches us that this moment of self-disruption is, well, it's rarely comfortable or popular.
Wow.
It usually involves a deep existential fight. Our first case study takes us to Los Angeles, May 2013, and it's focused on Adobe CEO Shantanu Narayan. He was facing that dreaded leadership moment where the decision that is strategically correct for the next decade is the one that makes everyone, customers, investors, even some of your own employees, mad today.
The hook anecdote in the source material here is so critical because it illustrates this concept of the box-era liability. For decades, Adobe's creative tools, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, they were the absolute industry standard. And they relied on selling their software in these big, physical, packaged releases.
The famous box releases, Creative Suite, I remember them well. You pay a huge lump sum, often thousands of dollars, to get the software. And then maybe you'd upgrade every 2 or 3 years for hundreds more.
Exactly. And Adobe built its entire financial model, its engineering cycle, its sales projections around the surge and sag rhythm of those blockbuster product launches. That model felt safe, it felt predictable, and it was highly profitable in the short term.
But the sources point out that while that financial model was working, the world had fundamentally shifted around it.
Completely. Broadband internet was normal, which meant massive software updates could be streamed instantly. Automatic updates were what consumers expected. Mobile workflows were accelerating.
But the crucial silent threat, as the research highlights, was this persistent systemic piracy.
Yes.
I want to linger on that piracy point for a moment because it's such a powerful signal. When essential market-dominant software is priced at thousands of dollars, a massive part of the market will always find a way to get it for free. So piracy wasn't just a cost center, it was a clear market signal that customers wanted continuous access, not a huge upfront cost and a once every few years event.
Precisely. They wanted ongoing value. So in May 2013, Adobe made this bold, irreversible decision that turned a gradual shift into a financial and cultural cliff.
Okay, what was it?
They announced they would completely stop selling new packaged versions of Creative Suite and push all future innovation, features, and updates solely through Creative Cloud subscriptions.
Now, Creative Cloud wasn't totally new, right?
What?
It had been introduced in 2011 and tied to the CS6 launch in 2012.
That's right. But this move in 2013, the forced retirement of the box,
Yeah.
that was a commitment. That was the moment they burned the boats.
And the immediate reaction, it wasn't praise, I'm guessing.
It was volcanic, as the sources describe it. Adobe's customer base, millions of graphic designers, filmmakers, photographers, they felt a genuine sense of betrayal.
I can imagine.
Thousands of customers signed petitions. The core fear was visceral, this idea of renting the tools they relied on for their livelihood. Small design studios worried about the shift from a predictable, occasional capital expense buying a box to an unpredictable, recurring operational cost.
It fundamentally shifted the power dynamic, didn't it? It moved from ownership to constant dependence. Did the sources address the internal financial risk they took?
Absolutely. This is where that cadence shift is so painful, but necessary. Subscriptions fundamentally change the rhythm of cash flow. You sacrifice that big, beautiful revenue spike that came with every major boxed release for a slower, steadier stream over years.
Okay.
The research notes that this led to an immediate, temporary dip in their financial optics, specifically in recognized quarterly revenue. You could almost feel the stock analysts just holding their breath.
It's the corporate equivalent of ripping off a highly profitable Band-Aid. You give up the immediate hit of cash for long-term predictability. The crowd is booing because your short-term speed, your revenue is dropped, even though your long-term health is improving.
That internal pain is the price of survival in an accelerating world. The underlying principle here is what we call self-disruption with intent. Adobe chose to cannibalize the familiar before external forces like piracy, changing consumer habits, or some nimble sauce competitor did it for them. They embraced that messy, temporary pain of the transition.
And the mindset shift here is profound. The box-era mindset protected the finished product. It was all about guarding that IP and selling it perfectly once.
But the cloud era, or the subscription mindset, is entirely different. It protects the customer's momentum. It says, my primary job is to ensure continuous delivery of value, continuous updates, and continuous accountability.
So you move from a rhythm of, wait, perfect release, repeat.
Do ship, learn, update, repeat. They transform their cadence from sprinting every 3 years to a continuous, steady jog.
So how does this apply to you, the individual learner, sitting there with your current skill set? You might not have a revenue spike to worry about, but you have momentum.
Right.
Our actionable takeaway here is to run the cannibalization drill quarterly.
This is a fantastic exercise. You need to ask yourself honestly, if a new, nimble startup tried to kill my current process or my role, how would it do it? Would it use AI to automate my research? Would it use a no-code solution to eliminate my middle layer work?
And then you immediately borrow the best idea from that imaginary threatening startup.
For sure. And you have to track the pain points, just like Adobe tracked piracy. For you, tracking workaround behavior is the signal that your system is obsolete.
That's a great point. If you find yourself hacking around your current software or workflow because it's too clunky,
That is a clear demand signal for simpler access, better UX, or automation. That friction has to be automated or templated immediately.
the maxim from the Adobe Pivot is clear then. Don't wait for the future to feel friendly. Don't wait for your competition or your customers to force your hand. Move first, initiate the disruption, and then make the future negotiate on your terms. So Adobe chose to pivot away from its profitable rhythm. Kodak provides the classic counterexample, the company that invented the future but refused to adopt the required cadence because that invention threatened the successful identity of the company.
This story takes us to Rochester, New York in December 1975 and focuses on a young 23-year-old engineer named Steven Sasson.
Okay.
Kodak was an empire built on the chemical process of film, processing, and paper. Their identity was entirely physical. Sasson was tasked with this simple side quest. Could a new type of sensor, a charge-coupled device or CCD, capture an image electronically?
And the sources detail the magnificent ugliness of the resulting prototype.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
It was an 8-pound toaster-sized camera with a large lens stuck on the front. It was rudimentary. But here's the crucial detail that makes the story so painful. The sensor captured a tiny 100 by 100 pixel black and white image, just 0.01 megapixels.
And critically, saving a single photo took a staggering 23 seconds, writing the data onto a cassette tape. To view it, you had to play it back on a separate system via a black and white television screen.
So it was clumsy, it was slow, expensive, and low quality compared to film.
But it proved the physics of the future.
And the conflict didn't stop there. Kodak was smart enough to recognize the breakthrough, right? They patented key elements of this electronic still camera.
They did. But holding a patent is profoundly different from adopting a new business model. The revolutionary idea, digital photography, directly threatened the highly profitable engine of their empire. The sales of film, the profit from processing chemicals, the sale of photo paper. It threatened the entire ecosystem and identity of Kodak.
This is the Kodak paradox. The invention itself, proof of Kodak's incredible innovation engine, was a paradox because it attacked the company's very reason for existence.
And the principle here is that keeping up is about not being emotionally loyal to what made you successful yesterday.
You have to detach the concept of success from the mechanism of success. The source material is very clear here. If you delay the adoption of a technology because it threatens your established identity or revenue stream, you are making a fundamental bet.
A huge bet.
You're betting the world will slow down long enough for you to adjust later.
That bet fails almost every time. Kodak's original slogan captured the magic of the film era: you press the button, we do the rest.
Right.
The company essentially separated picture taking from picture processing, and Kodak owned that highly profitable processing part. Digital photography collapsed that separation entirely. The rest became software and memory instantly available on a cheap chip.
The hinge moment for the individual isn't necessarily inventing something new, but recognizing that your greatest breakthrough or the new technology in your field may require you to become a fundamentally different kind of professional to survive it.
And this demands constant analysis of the landscape. We have to constantly ask, what does this new technology make cheaper, instant, or unnecessary?
Digital made film optional.
Exactly. And once something that was mandatory, like film development, becomes optional, its dominance is on a countdown clock. You have to identify that countdown clock in your own professional life.
So let's run the film test as our actionable takeaway. Identify what core value you currently sell that a new technology might make optional. Are you selling time, specialized knowledge that an AI could generate, or an expensive manual process?
And then you have to follow the Sasson path. Prototype the toaster. Build a clumsy, ugly, early version of the new workflow anyway, even if it feels ridiculous or slow compared to your current mastery. Don't wait for the new technology to be perfect. Sasson's first camera was terrible.
But it validated the possibility.
That's it.
Right. If you wait for the AI tool to be perfect before you integrate it into your writing workflow, you will arrive after the advantage windows.
For sure.
You have to build a habit of tracking replacement signals. What steps, what costs, what specialized equipment or gatekeepers does the new technology remove? If you won't disrupt yourself, the sources argue, your own invention or someone else's will.
Okay, so we've established that staying current requires self-disruption. But disruption is only useful if you have the internal systems to learn from the chaos that follows.
Right. What do you do next?
Now we shift from market disruption to internal systems. How do you make learning a core, systematic function of your daily life, rather than some occasional heroic effort? This is the cadence of learning. Systematizing improvement.
This story starts in the Ann Arbor area in the late 2000s, and it's a masterclass in how a company can reverse engineer its reputation using technology. Domino's was famously in a public slump.
A big one. The research highlights that customer sentiment was low, the pizza was often considered cheap, and they were lagging badly behind competitors in convenience and perception.
And the modern consumer, especially by then, expected transparency and control in all their transactions, whether buying a book or ordering dinner. The act of ordering pizza, for most people, meant placing the order and then suffering through this period of intense high-anxiety waiting.
Right, where is my food?
Exactly.
Huh.
So Domino's did something deceptively simple, but strategically profound. They made the invisible visible. In 2008, they launched the Domino's Tracker.
Ah, the tracker.
It's an online system that let customers follow the precise progress of their order, from dough prep to baking to quality check to the delivery driver leaving the store, all in real time.
On the surface, it's just a delightful feature, but what was the profound cultural decision underpinning it?
The decision was, we will treat technology as the interface to trust. waiting for food generates anxiety. Did they forget me? Is it late? Did they mess up the order? The tracker attacked that anxiety, replacing guessing with concrete, continuous feedback.
And once you build one successful feedback loop, the entire company starts treating everything like a feedback loop.
That's right. The source material notes that Domino's just kept leaning into digital ordering and experimentation until the CEO at the time, Patrick Doyle, famously articulated the new identity.
Calling the company a technology company that delivers pizza.
That phrase, a technology company that delivers pizza, is the key hinge moment. It's moving from treating technology as a siloed department, something you call when the printer jams,
Right.
to treating it as the operating system of the entire enterprise. The tracker wasn't just a convenience for customers. It was a massive upgrade to Domino's internal learning speed.
I see the connection now. When orders flow through digital rails, they leave structured, time-stamped data at every single stage prep time, oven time, bagging time.
All of it.
And that data makes improvements systematic, measurable, and cheaper with every single cycle. They weren't relying on a manager's memory or some quarterly review.
Exactly. The principle here is that the advantage in an accelerated world goes to those who treat technology as a learning loop. Capture signals, run small experiments on the data, measure outcomes, and standardize what works. They replaced reliance on memory and motivation with automated systems that generate constant, reliable feedback.
So if you want to keep up, you need to stop relying on these occasional heroic efforts and start relying on instrumentation.
And that leads directly to the actionable takeaway. You need to build a personal tracker for one workflow. Pick one recurring task, maybe managing your inbox, drafting a proposal, or compiling a weekly report, and make the steps visible.
The key here is to turn friction into a metric. If you repeat an action manually, tally it. Once that tally hits 10 or 20, that's your signal. Automate it, template it, or build a tool or a prompt to handle it. You are instrumenting your own professional life.
And adopt the one experiment per week rule. Don't set a vague goal like learn AI. Set a tiny specific test. Draft one email using a new AI tool and measure the time saved. Or commit to improving one keyboard shortcut set this week.
The maxim is clear. If you can't measure your workflow, you can't modernize it. Make it visible, then make it better.
Domino's focused on the customer interface to drive learning. AT&T focused on the internal engine. It's 250,000 employees.
A very different scale.
This story takes us to Dallas, Texas, between 2013 and 2016, and it's a brilliant billion-dollar example of proactive, systematic internal change under immense pressure.
AT&T faced an existential shift in its core business. The entire industry was moving away from hardware-heavy fixed infrastructure networks, miles of copper, proprietary switches, physical boxes, and towards software-defined networking, cloud-based systems, and data science. Their CEO at the time stated they needed to achieve a 70% software-based network in just a few years.
And the source material highlights the central, catastrophic problem. Their existing workforce's skills were perfectly optimized for yesterday's architecture. They had thousands of engineers who were experts in installing and maintaining specific physical switches and cables that were about to become obsolete overnight.
This is the moment most legacy companies perform the standard corporate play. Lay off the old workforce and try to hire new, young talent with degrees in data science and cloud architecture.
But AT&T recognized two things. First, the supply of external technical talent was limited and outrageously expensive. And second, laying off thousands of longtime employees was a massive, expensive waste of decades of institutional knowledge, understanding of the network, and loyalty.
So they chose the radical third path, reskill at scale. This became the multi-year billion-dollar internal retraining effort, often referred to as Workforce 2020.
Or WF 2020.
Right. This was a commitment to systematically reinvent the company from the inside out. They standardized job structures, identified the future roles they needed, data scientists, security analysts, cloud architects, and then provided employees with the credentials they needed for those future roles. They used partnerships with places like Udacity, Coursera, and Georgia Tech.
The scale of the bet was massive, but the human hinge is what really resonates with our listener. The sources focus on the story of Jacoby Davis, a longtime AT&T employee, 19 years in roles centered on legacy maintenance, like 9/11 line infrastructure.
Okay.
He suddenly realized that technology he was an expert on had an expiration date.
Davis's quote in the materials is crucial. He faced the choice. Do I pivot or do I retire when the company retires the technology I'm an expert on? That's the pivot point every single professional faces in an accelerated environment.
Yeah.
It's the day you realize that your expertise, no matter how hard won, can expire, and you are not entitled to relevance just because you were good at the old way.
And the genius of the AT&T approach was that they built the runway for people like him. They created the growth path. Detailed role profiles, standardized learning options, tuition support, and structured time for training.
This reinforces the core principle. Reskilling is not an event you attend once a year. It's an operating system, a culture of perpetual learning.
If your learning is occasional, your relevance is accidental.
Exactly. If it's systematic, your relevance becomes predictable. And you must be early enough to the new trend, tool, or skill. Waiting until you are desperate means you will chase shiny objects instead of building durable, foundational skills like data literacy or cloud architecture.
The AT&T example showed many employees voluntarily spending 5–10 hours a week on retraining supported by the company. That's an important cadence metric for us.
That gives us our actionable takeaway. Adopt the 5–10 hour rule. Small, consistent weekly learning blocks beat occasional, exhausting marathons. You're chipping away at the future, not trying to absorb it all in one sprint.
And critically, tie that learning to a specific role or outcome. Don't just say you will learn Python. Say you will learn Python to automate my monthly reporting workflow.
Yes.
You need to create a personal skills forecast. Once a quarter, write down the 3 skills your role is moving toward, not what you currently do.
That forecast is your compass. It allows you to build skills that are portable across platforms and employers, cloud basics, security hygiene, data visualization. The powerful maxim from this section is, don't wait for technology to render your current skill set obsolete. Promote yourself into what's next, starting right now.
So we've covered disruption sacrificing success and learning systematizing improvement.
Right.
Now we move to the final essential cadence, accepting that modern technology is inherently complex, distributed, and fundamentally that failure is normal. This section is about shifting your focus from prevention to recovery. This is the cadence of resilience, designing for inevitable chaos.
This begins with a moment of severe trauma for Netflix in August 2008. At that time, streaming was still nascent. Netflix was primarily a DVD by mail company.
I remember that.
A quiet internal function, the database that managed the queues and addresses for DVD shipping, was the operational heartbeat of the physical side of their business.
And that heartbeat suffered a critical failure. The research details a major database corruption event that completely halted DVD shipping for 3 full days.
Think about that. They literally could not fulfill the one thing their entire business was built to do: deliver discs to members.
So what do? The natural response is to build a bigger wall, right?
Exactly. The natural, human, and traditional corporate response is to build a bigger wall, a more expensive server, more redundancy stacked on the same centralized architecture. That is what the sources refer to as the castle model of computing.
The castle model. Tell us more about that pain point.
The castle model is defined by reliance on a few giant, specialized, must-never-fail components. It's a highly centralized system. The problem is that while you spend millions trying to prevent one failure, the moment that single point of failure, the database, the mainframe, is breached or corrupted, the entire business halts.
So it only leads to a future crisis with a much bigger blast radius and a countdown clock you can't stop.
Precisely. Netflix realized that fragility was the problem, not the database itself.
So what was the solution?
The solution was a difficult, multi-year strategic migration to distributed systems in the cloud, specifically using Amazon Web Services, or AWS. And here's the counterintuitive part that defines the cadence shift. Moving to the cloud doesn't eliminate failure.
Right.
In a distributed cloud environment, servers die, networks hiccup, instances disappear, failure is normal, daily background noise.
So the goal shifted entirely. They realized they couldn't win by preventing every failure. They had to win by making failure boring.
Werner Vogel's famous mantra perfectly captures this mindset shift. Everything fails all the time.
And this leads to their bold defining tool created around 2011, Chaos Monkey.
The name is whimsical, but the tool is ruthlessly effective. Netflix created a piece of software specifically designed to randomly terminate production instances, live servers at unpredictable times during working hours.
So you are intentionally breaking production on purpose. That defies everything traditional IT departments believe. What was the core philosophical goal of Chaos Monkey?
The goal was to force engineers to build anti-fragile services. If an engineer knows that their server running a critical service could be killed randomly by Chaos Monkey at any second, they must design the surrounding system to immediately detect that failure, rerush the traffic, spin up a new instance, and never rely on that single terminated server.
So they moved from treating reliability as a hope, let's pray it doesn't break,
To treating it as a constant practiced habit. We practice breaking safely.
The mindset upgrade is essential here, not just for engineers, but for all of us. The old model of reliability meant nothing breaks, ever. The modern model means we recover fast and gracefully from the inevitable failure. Organizations that stay current build systems that can absorb mistakes and errors without catastrophic collapse.
This is the cadence of resilience. It forces you to proactively identify and neutralize single points of failure.
So how do we apply this failure-first thinking personally? The actionable takeaway is to adopt failure-first thinking. For any new workflow or tool you adopt, especially if it's critical, immediately ask, what happens when this breaks? If the answer is, I lose 2 days of work or I'm totally stuck, you have to redesign before you become dependent.
And we can all practice a personal chaos hour. Once a week, intentionally stress test a workflow, turn off the internet dependency for a crucial task, switch from your primary work device to a less optimized one to complete something important.
That helps you find the weak links while the stakes are low. The goal is to reduce single points of failure in your personal stack. If your entire life depends on one password manager, one cloud provider, or one specific app, you are inherently fragile. You're operating on the castle model.
Make recovery a checklist, not a scramble driven by panic. Write a short, when X fails, I do Y playbook for things like device loss, data restoration, or key password recovery. Don't bet your future on perfect uptime build for the moment it breaks.
Our final rhythm looks at the ultimate self-disruption. When the tools you rely on become the bottleneck to your progress, you have to build your own. This takes us to Portland and the internet in April 2005, where Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, faced a collaboration crisis.
The Linux kernel project is arguably the largest, most widely distributed software collaboration in human history. We're talking thousands of developers worldwide. For years, they had relied on a proprietary centralized version control tool called BitKeeper to manage the immense flow of code changes.
But when licensing and access issues blew up that arrangement, the collaboration was suddenly bottlenecked.
Torvalds faced a reality that wouldn't negotiate. He needed something distributed, fast, and robust to handle the nonlinear global complexity of the Linux kernel development. The need for a replacement was immediate and unforgiving.
And the speed of the solution is legendary and speaks to the urgency of that cadence. The sources note that Torvalds wrote the early version of Git, the version control system that now underpins virtually all modern software development, in about 10 days.
10 days. Not the complete polished tool, but the functional minimum viable version.
10 days to create a tool that fundamentally changed how the software world collaborates. That's an absurd timeline for a foundation piece of infrastructure. What was the driving attitude behind that sprint?
It was pure, pragmatic urgency. Torvalds didn't create Git for the glory or to invent a new product line. He created it because the available tools simply couldn't keep up with the scale and speed of his collaborative reality. The tools were the problem.
And his attitude was captured in the first commit message, which is famously blunt.
It is. Initial revision of Git, the information manager from hell.
Right.
It wasn't polished, it was functional, and born out of constraint and pressure.
This illustrates the core distinction between two fundamental habits that determine relevance. Most people fall behind because they practice tool obedience. This is the software we use, this is the established system. They treat tools as fixed constraints.
And Torvalds demonstrated tool ownership. When the tools couldn't meet the cadence required by the environment, he built the system he needed. He designed for his specific constraints.
For our listener, the non-programmer, build the tool doesn't mean writing complex code. So what does it mean in the context of acceleration?
It means becoming a tool maker in your own domain. It means refusing to be bottlenecked by off-the-shelf software. It means creating templates, robust automations using no-code tools like Zapier or Notion databases, or developing prompt libraries and scripts that patch the inevitable gaps in whatever major software you use.
If you wait only for tools that feel finished and perfect, you will always arrive after the window of advantage closes.
Right. Tools are messy and functional when they're born, and you need to be comfortable with that initial messiness to gain the speed advantage.
So the actionable takeaway is to write your own BitKeeper moment. Where is your current toolchain slowing you down the most? Is it file versioning, status updates, scheduling, collaboration friction. Identify that single point of pain.
Then, commit to creating a minimum useful tool in 60 minutes. That could be a detailed checklist template, a saved macro that handles a repetitive action, or a no-code automation that removes just one repeated pain.
And always prefer speed over elegance in version 1. Git's origin wasn't elegant, it was ruthlessly functional under pressure.
Finally, design for nonlinear work. Assume you will change your mind and switch contexts, building versioning, notes, and clear file paths into everything you do. When the pace increases, you don't need willpower. You need better systems.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, analyzing how the masters of continuous adaptation operate. It turns out that keeping up with technology is not a matter of learning faster. It is a matter of changing your operating tempo or your cadence.
Let's consolidate the 5 rhythms we've identified, the strategic moves that define relevance in this accelerated world.
First, the cadence of disruption. You must be willing to cannibalize your own success, like Adobe, accepting that short-term financial or professional pain is a necessary price of long-term survival.
Second, the cadence of learning. You must instrument your learning loop, like dominoes, making friction and progress visible, and systematically improving your workflows through continuous data collection.
Third, the cadence of systemic reskilling. You need to reskill systematically, like AT&T, transforming perpetual learning into a required part of your job description and promoting yourself into the future before the old technology expires.
Fourth, the cadence of resilience. You must design for failure, like Netflix and Chaos Monkey, recognizing that reliability is about rapid recovery speed, not perfect, impossible prevention.
And finally, the cadence of ownership. You must be prepared to build the system you need, like Linus Torvalds and Git, refusing to be bottlenecked by tool obedience and instead becoming a maker of custom solutions.
This deep dive has shown that every successful pivot, whether corporate or personal, required accepting temporary discomfort. The dip in the financial optics at Adobe, the existential threat to identity at Kodak, the intentional chaos at Netflix. The leaders didn't wait for the future to feel friendly. They moved first, set their own rhythm, and made the future negotiate on their terms.
So here is the final provocative thought to take with you. You now have the foundational principles for setting your own cadence. Stop betting your future on perfect uptime or inherited expertise. Instead, ask yourself this: what success are you currently too emotionally loyal to? And what clumsy, ugly toaster of a new workflow should you commit to building or implementing this week to disrupt it?
Set your rhythm and you control your